Title: I heard the werewolf begging. Then my vampire mistress arrived. The first sound I heard in that abandoned parking garage was a werewolf begging for its life. Everyone says the most dangerous creatures only come out during a full moon. That's a lie. The worst ones don't need a full moon. I'm undead, one of the servants forced to work for vampires. A few nights ago, my mistress, Lady Seraphine, sent me to investigate an abandoned parking garage after several vampires vanished there without a trace. The place was wrong. The overhead lights flickered weakly, buzzing like trapped insects. Every level was silent except for the drip of water somewhere deep in the concrete. No cars, no people, just shattered glass, old oil slicks, and claw marks gouged into the pillars so deep they'd exposed the rebar underneath. The smell of wet fur, rust, and blood hung in the air so thick it coated the back of my throat. Then I heard breathing, not mine. Something was circling me in the dark, moving just out of sight between the concrete barriers and the rusted support beams. Before I could react, two glowing yellow eyes appeared behind a pillar. The werewolf didn't attack immediately. It smiled. I've been waiting for someone she'd actually come looking for. A second later, it hit me so hard I crashed through a concrete barrier and landed in a pile of broken gravel and dust. Pain flared through my ribs. I couldn't move. I could only watch as it slowly walked closer, claws scraping across the floor with that horrible metallic screech, each step leaving wet prints in the grime. Then the air changed. The buzzing lights dimmed to a feverish whisper. The smell of blood was suddenly cut through with something colder. Winter air, grave soil, and the faint, impossible sweetness of dead roses. Every hair on my body rose at once. A woman's voice drifted through the darkness, low and velvet smooth, and somehow it sounded like a promise and a sentence at the same time. You should have run. Lady Seraphine stepped out of the shadows, as if the dark itself had opened to let her through. She moved without haste, without sound, each step precise and graceful, like she was crossing a candlelit ballroom instead of a slaughterhouse. The broken lights above us burst one by one as she passed beneath them, glass popping overhead like tiny bones. For one terrible heartbeat, all I could see was the pale gleam of her eyes and the faint, cruel curve of her smile. She wasn't angry. She looked as though the slaughter had been arranged for her amusement. The werewolf charged anyway. I never saw her move. One blink. That's all it took. The beast was suddenly hanging several feet above the ground, choking on nothing, its body twisting as if invisible hands had wrapped around every bone in its body. I heard ribs crack, then shoulders, then something in its spine gave with a sound like splitting wood. It screamed, not in rage, but in pure terror. It kept repeating the same words. Please, not her, anyone but her. Lady Seraphine simply watched, perfectly still, as if she were listening to music only she could hear. When she finally raised one hand, the screaming stopped instantly. The werewolf collapsed into a crumpled pile on the floor, too terrified to even whimper. She walked over to me and brushed the dust off my shoulder as if nothing had happened. I asked her what she had done to it. She smiled. I reminded it what I am. I still fear going out after sunset, but that is when I must serve Lady Seraphine. And I go anyway, terrified every time, because sometimes, late at night, I still hear a wolf crying in the dark. And then I hear Lady Seraphine answer from somewhere just behind me, soft as silk and twice as cold. Good. Now it knows where to find you.